buyers are hesitant right now. I mean, will there be a recession? Won't there be a recession? Will borders close again? Won't borders close again? Like, nobody knows the answers to that. Everyone has an opinion, but the sheer uncertainty is what causes people to delay their buying decisions.
That's super cool. You definitely need to check it out. I'm excited to have you on and talk about sales. I've had a few people on the podcast just talking about sales. Is a topic that I really enjoy talking about and just hearing how it's evolved. So I really appreciate your time today, Colleen.
Hey, my pleasure.
Awesome. So I guess we can jump straight into it if that's fine with you. But yeah, Colleen, I guess please tell me and the audience a bit about yourself and a bit about your background. I think I first initially found you on LinkedIn, and that's sort of how I became aware of you and your content. But please share with the audience a bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm happy to. I always laugh as a sales consultant. I say I come by my profession pretty honestly. My dad, when I was growing up, was in sales. And so, I saw him as a salesman and as a sales manager. I made sales calls with him. I was one of those kids that when we had to sell whatever it was, I think it was everything from chocolate to poinsettias to wrapping paper to spices, to raise money for band camp or soccer camp, I had to do that door to door. So I started selling at an early age, and then started my professional career in sales after my university degree, and continued through a couple of different industries. I started in the life insurance business. Then I moved into technology sales and decided to start consulting in 2001. I guess it was probably right after that first tech bubble burst. I did some contract work for a couple of other organizations, and then just decided, based on where I live most of the time, which is Ottawa, Canada, that we really needed some part-time sales VP help, and that the companies, there was a lot of small startup companies that really needed the expertise in selling, but didn't have sort of the requirement for a full-time sales leader. And so that's how I started my consulting career.
Interesting. And what type of consulting specifically? Like, would you come into a startup and help build out their sales process? Would you talk to the existing salespeople and make their sales tactic better? What specifically would you help with?
I do all of the above. So I have definitely worked with startups where we have literally helped them create job descriptions and hire salespeople and build sales presentation material and value propositions, even helped with pricing. And I work with some of the larger organizations in the world, Fortune 5 companies, where we are training their sales teams. We might be training their resellers or their distributor networks, helping them roll out sales processes and methodologies. So, I mean, it really sort of runs the gamut. Sometimes I get engaged just with the sales leaders on helping them write compensation plans. And sometimes I'm working, hands-on with the sales team with their sales tactics.
Very cool. How about when it comes to selling your own consulting services? Has it all been inbound? You create content, people reach out to you through a form, then you follow up and you jump on a call with them, see if you can help their problem. What's the process like for your own consulting program?
That's a really great question. And it's always a funny one when you ask that to a sales consultant, right? Because obviously, I love to sell. When I started my practice 21 years ago, it was a lot of outbound work. So I relied on my network. I did a lot of networking, mostly back then. I mean, in 2001, 2002, it was mostly done in person at networking events. I made a lot of cold calls, spoke, at a lot of association meetings, free, just really spent a lot of time networking and did, I would say, 90% outbound work. But at the same time, I really did build my list and start a newsletter and, jumped onto LinkedIn and started a blog and all those things as early as I could. And, I think I can't pinpoint the actual date that this happened, but eventually what happened in my business is I became, I guess, sort of almost a content marketer to some degree. And then, like you found me on LinkedIn, that's where clients are mostly finding me, whether it's on LinkedIn or my blog, or they leave their current companies and take opportunities with other companies and they take me with them. So I've had a lot of that kind of business. I would say now, 95% of my business is inbound, maybe even higher, or repeat business.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations. How long
Thanks.
has that journey been to get to a point where it sort of flipped and it went from outbound to inbound?
I don't know. That's a great question. I was trying to think about that as you were talking to me. I know that if you had asked me this question 15 years ago, I would have felt like it's never going to happen, right? Like it takes a long time. I was describing this to another a consultant who's new in her career, and I said, it feels like you're going up a roller coaster that just never ends, right? You're putting out content and you're, networking. You're putting out content and you're doing videos and you're doing more videos and you're doing more newsletters. But it just kind of happened. I would probably say it's probably been 10 years, I would say. I would guess the transition started, 10 to 12 years ago. And a lot of that, it's just, I think it's two things. We put out a ton of content. And I also think that the advent of so many content sites, so many media sites, being friendly for business content, all just kind of started to bubble to the surface, like 12, 15 years ago, whether it's, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, all of those things have really helped in that way.
Interesting. Over the last 3 or 4 years, I've been sort of teaching, I have a YouTube channel. I teach people how to create online stores, how to do drop shipping, e-commerce, run Facebook ads, and I have a course and coaching program that teaches people how to do so. And every time I would go to sort of these networking events with sort of a lot of medium-sized businesses, a lot of corporate people, a lot of sort of C-suite employees, they'll ask you, so what do you do? And I'd say, I'm an online consultant. I sort of teach people how to build online businesses. And then maybe I'll catch up with them over the next few months and they'll be like, what exactly do you do again? I'm like, I help people start online stores. I show them to build online e-commerce stores. Like, oh, can you help us with our own social media, running ads for our own products?
Yeah.
And they're still sort of unsure what I do. And I'm like, okay, I have all these people that I'm just sort of sharing everything I know with. I haven't really sold any of these people that I've met through these networking events. And then when I do try to be like, all right, maybe I can sort of help you guys build out a team that hire people from the Philippines, build out a content team where you guys can consistently put out content, 3 or 4 pieces of content per day for your brand. And then I'm trying to piece something together. And this whole sales process, it's so messy compared to the simple, someone's watched my YouTube video, booked in a call with me, here's the course, it's 3 to 5K, this is what we can help you with. And then when I've tried to make that pivot to maybe more of like a higher ticket product, work with medium-sized businesses, work with more bigger companies, it just got really messy. Any tips there?
Yeah. So I got some early advice. I don't know who said this to me. So if you're listening and it was you, I apologize for not giving you the attribution on this, but they said, if you position yourself as someone who helps big companies, then little companies or mid-sized companies will easily find you and want to be part of that. But if your content is all provided to help small businesses, then it gets hard to close the big businesses because they don't see how you apply and you're constantly trying to fit things in. So I've always taken the approach of talking about what I do and my solutions more centered around like a big organization. And I find because startups or small businesses want to emulate that, then they're like, oh, so tell us what these big, huge companies do and we'll pay you for that. But the other way around doesn't fit very well. So the way around, and you're talking about two things, right? You're talking about a size of a different size of customer, but also slightly different content. And so what you'd have to be able to do is talk on your YouTube videos or other places about your expertise and examples and what you can showcase so that these businesses can log on to YouTube and say, oh, hey, that's what he does. And that's what we need help with.
Interesting. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And what has been the main platform that you've been really doubling down on, Colleen, over the last year or two?
LinkedIn, for sure. We get, I mean, I think all of our inbound leads that come from social media come from LinkedIn. So it's still the biggest business platform for larger organizations. And it's not just that, it's not even just that clients find me there. It's that, podcasters find me there, media finds me there. And so then they are broadcasting my message. Associations find me there and then hire me to speak at their association meeting. Or I might be connected with people who are running events that are free that I speak at. And so it's not a direct correlation between, my LinkedIn profile and a customer, although that does happen. Sometimes it's an indirect connection. I thought this was really funny. So I work with very large organization in North America, on the farm equipment side, global company. And I've been doing business with them in North America for 3 or 4 years. I have videos all over their platforms. I've spoken at conferences. And then out of the blue on LinkedIn, I got an email from a director in Africa saying, hey, we want you to come over and do business with our dealers and our guys in South Africa. And I just assumed it was because they had been connected through the North American channel. And they didn't even know. Like, honestly, they had no idea. He said, you're doing business with North America. Can you tell us what you're doing? Like, I'm speaking at, major dealer expos. I have videos on your platform, but they just didn't know different regions. And so he found me completely independently. I mean, it helped that I was able to communicate this. But I find the platform so interesting in that way because people just consume these bite-sized information. And what I often find then is when they do approach you, they can be consuming your information and interacting with you for such a long time that they're sold before they even get you on the phone.
Wow. Tell me about growing on LinkedIn. What's been your process like? What's your goal with the content you release? How have you been sort of creating content on LinkedIn?
I do have a team who's helping me with this, so I'll be completely transparent. I don't have all the answers because I don't do all the work. I know that the goal is engagement. So we use a variety of different types of content. So I do LinkedIn Lives, which can be like 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes with a guest, sometimes alone. We post short videos that are 1 to 2 minutes long. We do polls, we do short posts, and we do long, almost like blog posts. And so I just think it's the mixing up of all of the different content. And then what I do on LinkedIn myself, besides obviously the content for the LinkedIn Lives and all the videos, the content's all mine. They take care of the posting, is I go in and they send me, let's say a poll has been posted and a few days later I go in and I'll comment on all the comments and I ask questions and I share and I engage with people. So I work on the engagement side after some of those posts have been created. And I think that that's really what drives so much of the feedback is we're very active. We don't just set a post up and forget it. We actually engage with the content and engage with the people who are engaging with the content.
That's super cool. And do you sort of have any call to actions? How do you go ahead and sort of bring this sort of audience and sort of have them come to your website, learn about your services? How do you sort of take them to that next level?
Yeah, I do a couple of different ways. If you're engaged with them and they're asking questions, I often will be direct and say, is this something that you want to take offline and, have as a conversation? We have calls to action in not every piece of content we put up, but in some that will just say, hey, like visit us at Engage Selling, or for more information, go here. My LinkedIn Lives, there's always a lot of calls to action, people to engage with us on other platforms, to ask questions, to stay in touch, to buy my book, but not every post has a call to action in terms of wanting to learn more about me, because I find that's too salesy. If every time you rank content for me was like, hey, join my newsletter, hey, come and see me, hey, do this, hey, go there, then I would feel as a potential consumer that it was just sell, sell, sell.
And is all your content very sales oriented and teaching people about sales so that you can attract those type of people, or have you been creating more broad content on being a female entrepreneur, business, etc.?
Generally pretty specific. I don't do a lot of work on entrepreneurial side. Because there are very few female sales leaders, we do some of that content. I do some mindset work, just success mindset. But I would say 95% of the content is sales skills.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's sort of a big problem I had. I think I was creating content that was too broad. I wasn't really niche down and really talking about e-commerce, talking about Facebook ads and getting into the nitty gritty on things. And I think just because I was scared, because when I would do those type of content, it would not connect with majority of people, because the Facebook advertising space is very niche. So it would get much less impression and engagement.
Oh, interesting.
So I guess it's sort of like just a long-term play. Like I have to niche down, do it for a long enough time to slowly get the algorithm to understand that, hey, we're looking for these type of people.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, a lot of it is trial and error. Honestly, I believe that. And my business mentor, Alan Weiss, has this great expression that I love. It says, he calls it volume over accuracy. And what he means by that, and I don't mean to imply for anyone listening that he's talking about lying, because that's not what it is. But what he means is we've got to get a body of work out there. And just because you post it today doesn't mean that you even believe it a year from now, right? Like I've got a chapter in my book, my first book that came out 7 years ago, on how to create, an ideal buyer and all that. And then in my book that came out this year, I actually debunk that whole thing and say there's no such thing. So his point in volume over accuracy, which I live and breathe, is when you have a thought or an idea about something in the moment, just get it posted, right? When you're 80% ready, just go. Don't worry about, will this live forever? Don't over edit it. Just post something. If it's a minute, if it's 30 seconds, if it's 4 minutes, I'm talking about video there, just do it. And you're always better to have, 5 or 6 posts a week than one that you think is the right post.
Now, Colleen, if you're speaking, if someone watching this is a consultant and they're just getting their feet started, they've sort of maybe worked 10 years in their field and now they want to sort of transition and sort of start teaching what they've learned, what's your biggest tip? Should they learn how to do outbound and build out maybe a sort of DM messaging sort of sales process, or should they go straight to content marketing? What would your biggest advice for consultants that are starting out?
I think they have to do both. So I would definitely go direct to anyone they know, right? So they've got to reach out to their own network directly and let them know what they're doing, ask for referrals, secure business meetings, but they also have to be doing content marketing, because they're not going to build. If they want to grow beyond 1 or 2 contracts, they're not going to do that on the backs of their current base. They have to get beyond that base, and the only way to do that is to get your knowledge, your expertise, your superpower out there, across all of the media. The other thing, and I give this advice to sellers all the time, and I had to take this advice myself this year, is you have to embrace all the media types. You don't know where your market is going to be, and you have no idea where people are consuming information. And so, you might say, I hate Facebook, but if your people are on Facebook, you need to be there. If you're not on LinkedIn, but all your buyers are there, you need to be there. I'm now also on TikTok and Reddit. It took me a number of years to get there. I fought with my team ferociously on those, and much to my surprise and chagrin, some of my biggest customers have absolutely fantastic TikTok pages that they use, like, John Deere's and the Chevrons of the world. And there's great companies and great people who work for those companies. And I'm finding this just cracks me up. So I have a friend in Ottawa who is a sales leader. And she follows me on LinkedIn. We're not like super close friends, but I see her a couple times a year. She follows me on LinkedIn. She knows of me. She follows me on Facebook. She might even be one of my newsletter subscribers. But I just found out from her that it's my TikTok videos that she's been forwarding to all of her sales VPs. And I've only been there a few months, and I'm just like, I can't believe this. If they end up hiring me because of the TikTok videos, my team is absolutely going to murder me for not being here earlier. But it's just funny. I think it's because they're short. They're really to the point. They're super easy to transfer. Maybe her boss is on TikTok, and I didn't know that. And so that's what she's using to get my information to her bosses who are decision makers in her organization. Funny, hey?
As I'm speaking to sort of more sales consultants that deal with, bigger companies and higher ticket contracts, what I'm learning, it's all about those touch points. Like you're sort of touching them on TikTok and then LinkedIn, and then they're forwarding this video, and you're doing it over a long period of time. You're checking in, you're following up, and you're just creating as many touch points as possible. And that's something that I'm not too knowledgeable about, because in my space, and I don't know, maybe it's changed in the last few years, but when you're selling anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 sort of ticketed programs, you're sort of going for that one call close. You spend a lot of work, get them to book in that call, and try to sort of get something locked in on the call, whether it's a commitment, whether it's a deposit, or even close the whole amount. But based on what I'm hearing, you can't really play that game at a higher level.
No, because there isn't, for most of my clients, I shouldn't say that, for a lot of my clients, it's not a one call close, right? I mean, they're selling equipment or software that is, I don't know, anywhere from $30,000 to $3 million. And so there's multiple touch points, and there's multiple people that have to be engaged, right? So you need to be influencing and communicating 5 to 11 people in that sales cycle multiple times. And they use your content, your social media often as a check, right? Like a reputation check. Is what you're saying over here the same as what you're doing with us? So they all flow together, let's just say.
And then I don't know if the times have changed, but I am finding that even now at the 1 to 10K mark, the one call closes are starting to get really difficult. Like it's nearly, people are wanting to think about it. People are wanting to get off the phone. People are wanting to check out options. People are now considering, hey, with this budgeting, what if I just spent that on trying to figure it out myself or putting on ads? Even the low ticket range, the closing process seems to be changing. Is that something you've sent as well, Colleen?
The closing process is changing?
Or the sort of the one call close is starting to become harder, and it's no longer working as it did 3 or 4 years ago?
Well, I think it just depends on what it is that you're selling, right? It's harder if you're making cold calls, for sure, if people don't know of you, because it's a fairly risky marketplace right now. People are less likely to buy from people they don't know. So it's not difficult if they've called you, right? And they say, hey, I saw this online, this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm interested in, because they've already, by mere fact that they've called you or sent you an email, they already have developed some level of trust. So if your approach is inbound, then a one call close is still possible, but I think you have to be patient with prospects. If your approach is all direct outbound, then it's going to be very difficult, because the tolerance for pure cold callers right now is pretty low.
And is that a cyclic thing where it goes through, like, let's say in 10 years time, it's going to get really hot again, or is it always going to go on a downward trend?
I have no idea. It's been going on a downward trend for years. It's not to say that it can't uptick, but I think the more information that's out there online, the less likely people are to take a call from a stranger and buy something, because they want to do their own research first. They want to know that, I mean, it's hard to get people on the phone even right now, right? So I think that as more information becomes available, and people are used to making their own decisions. The studies from Gartner are showing that we are seeing right now increasingly high numbers of people who want to buy without a seller being engaged. Pre-COVID, it was about 33% of buyers said, I want a sellerless experience. Post-COVID, we're 44%. And that's because we're now used to buying online without anyone engaging with us. a whole host of things we didn't think possible previously. And so that number just keeps going up. I can't see it turning around, but maybe we hit a tipping point where no one believes anything on the internet anymore. And so they only believe cold callers. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Have you noticed, how about the inbound leads? Have you, like, I don't know, maybe I just need a bigger sample size, but I'm starting to feel like the inbounds went from like, hey, like, Andy, like, what are you offering? How can I work with you? What's the price? Like, I want to work with you as soon as possible, to like, hey, like, I just wanted to jump on a call to learn what you offer, hear about what the price point is, and then make a decision about it in my own time. Yeah. Is that a shift you've noticed with inbound leads, or is it just me?
No, it's definitely a shift, and it's not just inbound leads. The shift is coming because of the dynamic in the marketplace right now. People are hesitant to make quick decisions. They still feel there's an element of risk. They want to make sure they're making the right decision. They maybe lack the confidence to make that decision, especially if they're new. If they're just starting a business, like maybe they've quit their business or been fired or was laid off, and so they're just trying to figure out the best way forward. So all of these things, and we're seeing in all sectors, big business and small business, that decision timeframes are getting longer over right now. And that people are concerned. The most sophisticated sellers I work with right now are currently looking at their pipelines and planning for this year and saying, okay, what if my cycle time moves from 71 days to 90 days or 90 to 200 days? Like, what does my pipeline, my outbound and inbound pipeline have to look like in order to manage against that risk? Because buyers are hesitant right now. I mean, will there be a recession? Won't there be a recession? Will borders close again? Won't borders close again? It's like nobody knows the answers to that. Everyone has an opinion, but the sheer uncertainty is what causes people to delay their buying decisions.
Interesting. One thing I'm sort of trying to understand more is, tell me a bit about what sales people mean by sales cycle. So when it goes from 60 to 90 days, does that mean that technically over a big sample size, you can close everyone over a long period of time? Because I always thought that, hey, if someone doesn't close on that call with you, the people who jump off and say, I think about it, you might be lucky to close 10% of those people, and 10% of those people would actually come back to you and actually show up to the second call. But I've never thought it in a way where those other 90% would eventually close over a long period of time.
Yeah, so it's hard to define a single way, but generally it is over a pipeline. Because if you think, like, most of my clients it takes multiple days to close. Like, we meet with you, we understand your needs, we come back, we have some additional questions, we present some ideas, we see if they fit, we present some more ideas, we meet some more people. We get a sense of your budget, we learn some more about your organization, we put a proposal together, and then we close. And that process could take 30 days, 60 days. If I'm thinking about some of my clients who sell, contracts, like a client that sells industrial lubricants, right? They sell to power plants. Power plants only buy when they do their shutdown so that they can do their maintenance on their turbines. That sales cycle can be an entire year because they've got to get everything in place, and then someone has to make a decision. Yes, we're going with you, and then we have to wait for the shutdown, and then we have to move forward, right? So there can be, in those cases, those are long sales cycles. And it's not as simple as just saying, I asked for the business and what's all the follow-up after. It's actually all the number of days, weeks, or months that it takes on the front end, getting everything together to get ready to present to the customer.
Now, is a funnel more like a sort of parallel or like a V-shaped funnel where you might, at the second touch point, you give someone tips and how you can help them, and they don't get back to you. So now they're out of the list, and it sort of gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
It's definitely a funnel. And, we often like to call it a nail. Like, I like it to be pretty severe up the top and to short and to get, as narrow as quickly as possible. Because ideally in a long sales cycle, you do want to weed out the non-buyers or non-serious buyers as quickly as possible so that you're not wasting time nurturing them and trying to qualify them at the expense of paying attention to your best customers or best prospects, I should say.
Now, how would you apply this to, say, something that's much more lower ticket? Let's say it's $5,000 for like a coaching package or a sort of mentorship or like a course. Like,
yep.
Is it the same thing but much less steps? Are you going from reaching out to 100 people and having 2 serious people and it's just like 1 step from 100 down to 2?
Well, I mean, usually average sales metrics are about, it's about a 20% conversion ratio from like someone raising their hand to be interested to a qualified lead, meaning I get them a proposal, and about a 30% closing ratio from proposal to close. So you kind of can work that math backwards. You know, on a $5,000 sale, I would argue that the best salespeople don't try to close on the first sale. They would get on the phone, have a conversation to find out what the person's needs, maybe talk to them about the packages, and then offer to follow up and say, you know, why don't I put together a proposal or package for you, and then we can circle back and talk again. Yes, right. Then a week later, you get on the phone, you run through the proposal together, and then maybe you ask whether they're ready to move forward. And if they're not ready to move forward, then we ask what the follow-up should be, and then the follow-up would happen after that.
What's your thoughts on adding in that extra step? Because let's say you have 100 people, 20 people raise a hand, you jump on a call with those 20 people, and then you sort of just ask a question, see how you can help them. You book in a follow-up call to sort of show them a package, and already maybe 3 people might have just dropped out and didn't show up to that second call. And now you went from 20 down to 17, but you have more serious people and maybe you have a higher close rate, which makes up for the 3 people that left.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it will depend on the strength of your brand, right? So the strength of your brand will be able to dictate how, you know, a one call close. So that is definitely something that, you know, each individual coach is going to have to navigate. I'm a big believer in nurturing leads. I don't like to pressure people. I don't think it works. And so I think, I mean, yeah, you're right. What would be interesting though, is if those 2 people don't show up for the second call, how many people aren't buying when you put pressure on them on that first call, right? Now, if you do it right and you say to someone, hey, why don't I put together some options for you and we can walk through those? And they say, well, can you just tell me what they are right now? Because I'd like to make a decision. Then of course you're going to do that. But the idea is that you would put together some customized proposal that said, based on what you said, here's the best ways that we can help you, and that you would offer them a couple of different options so that they can choose the option as opposed to you just trying to sell them a single option.
Interesting. Colleen, what's your advice for this sort of this shift where a lot of people do need more time, people do have less confidence, you're getting a lot more fear-based objections? Is it now all in the follow-up? Is there something you could do more beforehand? What's your advice for this change in landscape?
Well, it's 3 things really. It's build your brand so that more people know more about you, so that when they do come to you, they're confident in you and they trust you. 2, you have to have more prospects in your pipeline. Know the numbers and track your rates, your conversion rates. And 3, the follow-up is critical. Don't ever let that prospect get off the phone without at least knowing what the follow-up plan is going to be, and agree to what those calls or those emails will look like.
Got it. And then I guess it's everything. I was going to say, would you double down on the follow-up or the content? But I think it's everything. Just go hard on everything, right?
Well, it is. And I mean, the reality is if you double down on the content on the front end and more highly qualified people are coming to you first and foremost, you probably will do less follow-up because you won't have to sell as hard. More people are sold already, right? And it could just be a pricing conversation, right? This is what it costs to work with us. And they either see the value or they don't. But I think for me, I've just found as independent consultants, the more work you do on the front end, really positioning yourself as the content expert and showing the value that you can deliver to people, the less sales you have to do.
Because I did notice 3 or 4 years ago, or even like 2 years ago, it was a lot of sort of money-based objections, and those are more easy to handle because you can then figure out a payment plan that works perfectly for them. But now it's like not money, it's more fear or confidence. It's like something else that stopped. Even if you broke it down into super easy payment plans, or even sort of you half the sort of coaching period and made it half the price, they were still coming up with sort of fear-based objections to get themselves out of it. How do you handle those or that situation? Is it now just that's normal and you need to find more people and go off a larger sum so that the lower percentage conversion rate would make up for it?
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to close 100%, right? And so if you're seeing a lot, I mean, I guess it depends on what the objections are. You know, even price-based objections are generally, they don't see the value, right? So you have to be able to show them the value by talking about the return on investment that they will get, by the, you know, the added time or the money. And, you know, then if it's a cash flow, there's a very big difference between pricing objections and cash flow objections, right? Especially with a startup consultant. I don't want to spend $5,000 because you're not worth it is very different than I'd like to spend $5,000 with you, but I can't afford that on my credit card right now, you know? And so, and I see this all the time, even with big businesses, right? We want to do business with you, but the way our budgeting works, we need to, you know, our procurement rules are we can only do it in, you know, these chunks, right? Okay, that's fine. So let's break it into 3 chunks. I don't need it all up front. That's a cash flow or a procurement rules, but the value is there. You're not negotiating your fee down because we've shown tremendous value. So, you know, I think the key is early in the sales cycle, what is it that you're trying to accomplish and why do you want to accomplish that? Why do you want to set up that store? Why do you want, how do you think I can help? How much value, you know, what are you looking, what will happen when you achieve that?
Interesting. So when someone says they see the value, but it's just, you know, $5,000 is quite a lot of money, you know, they're unsure if they should go ahead and just spend that $5,000 trying to figure it out on their own. It's just a lot to think about. It's not a money issue. It's just like, cause yeah, they're in this weird confused state, and I'm like, maybe I need to do a better job of trying to figure out what their problem is. If it's fear, if it's money, like I'm trying to tie it down to money, but it's obviously not money. And then if it's fear, it's like this weird unsureness.
I mean, well, the two are linked. It's that they are unsure that spending the money will get them the value that they want. And either they haven't communicated that value or don't know what it is, or you haven't asked the question on what value. I mean, I say to clients, you know, what are you trying to accomplish? We need to hit target. How much is target? Or how much are you growing this year? And they say, we need to grow by $45 million. Okay. So then when I show them a fee of whatever it is, for $45,000, $450,000, $100,000, I say, like, you know, my job is to get you to that $45 million by investing this, you know, even if we can only be responsible for 10% of you getting there, you're investing $100,000 to get 4.5 million, right? Like that has to be clear to them. And if they're not clear on that, then that's when they get into pricing objections. Or they've talked to someone else who said, oh, I can do it for $2,000, right? And they're just not sure. They don't believe or trust that you can deliver the value you say you can.
And how do you handle that, Colleen? Like, how do you handle the people that they hear what you're saying, but they're not sure that it can be done? Well,
there's probably nothing you can do. I mean, short of if they won't believe testimonials or case studies, and they say we don't believe it can be done, or you know, every once in a while I bump into someone who says, we've never paid that before. I'm like, well, okay. Like, I mean, what am I supposed to do with that? We just walk away. That's why, I mean, closing ratios are always going to be, you know, in that 30 to 50%, right? You're not going to close 100%. And the hardest thing a consultant or a business owner or a salesperson has to do is learn how to walk away from the business and not push too hard.
That's beautiful. Last question, Colleen. Over the next upcoming 2 or 3 years, I guess, what's your biggest advice for consultants, people in sales, with the shifting landscape? And any last tips as times are getting harder? People are not only getting more options because the internet is becoming more knowledgeable, but at the same time, money's becoming tighter because times are getting tougher?
Yeah, I mean, I think the advice that I'm giving my clients is that we cannot rely on, decades old sales practices to get us through. The buyers have changed, the demographic has changed, the economy has changed, the access to technology has changed. And so we need to be constantly looking at what's working now and replicate that as opposed to what was working in 2018. And we have to mitigate against that risk. Smart sales teams are looking at it and saying, okay, if my metrics stay the same, then I'll need X number of leads. But what's the worst case scenario? What if closing ratios drop? What if people stop spending money or want to spend reduced amounts? What if our sales cycles drag out? What does our pipeline have to look like? And what do our marketing efforts need to look like in order to be commensurate with that? So a lot of risk mitigation planning there.
That's beautiful, Colleen. Thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find more about all this knowledge and value that you're providing? How can people follow you and learn more?
They are always welcome to follow me at engageselling.com, which is our main website. You can also find me all over social media, on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, where we share, our videos and our content on a daily basis.
Thank you so much, Colleen, for your time today. I really appreciate it. I just love how passionate you are about sales. You've definitely had a lot of experience in this field, and this is a strong strength of yours, and I love just how authentic and just transparent you are about it, and I can definitely see why people want to work with you.
Oh, thanks very much. It's a real pleasure to work with our clients, and I love sharing my expertise with everyone.
Thank you so much. And yeah, this is another episode of the podcast. If you guys made it this far, thank you so much for watching it. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Please drop me a review on Spotify and Apple. I've been reading all the reviews. I'd love to get some feedback, pointers, things I can improve on, or if you like it, please just let me know. And yeah, I hope you guys got some value today, and I'll see you guys next week with another episode. Peace.